Good morning, everybody. Oh, and we're on. Yes. Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. I did. And it's good to be back. And I overate. And my cat's being fidgety today. I guess we had a little bit of time off. She's not used to this. Plus, I was out of town. And, by the way, shout out to everybody that came out. People aren't logging on to the stream yet. I'll do that later. I'll wait until we have people to give the shout out, if you will. But, I am on a little early. So, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is where you are. We'll wait for people to load in. Hello, Karen. How are you? Good to see you. I hope you had a wonderful holiday weekend. I did. I hope you did as well. It was cold where I was. I hope it was not as cold where you were. What's up, Detroit? Tom's lover. Good to see you. And I'll see you this summer. Me and Graham Elwood are for sure going to Detroit. Either in the summer or fall, depending on when we hit the Midwest. And Lucy's being fidgety this morning. Lucy, what's up? Do you want to hang out? Do you want to say hi to everybody? Yeah, come on. Jump up. Come here. There we go. Lucy says meow. Hello. She's being fidgety this morning for some reason. I don't know why. I think it might be because, again, we had a little vacation. Not vacation, really. Just went out of town for the holidays. So you guys know that because it's been a week since our last stream. So I guess she's not used to the normal routine. But, cats are pretty resilient. They get used to the routine really quick. As soon as I got back, she was already looking for, she was already looking for her normal routine of the, I brush her and then I give her a treat. And she digs that. She doesn't like being brushed, but she likes the treat she gets after. So she tolerates it. And she was already ready to go back to that. She was like, all right, I know this drill. You brush me, then you give me a treat on my cat tree. She was waiting on her cat tree. Like, where's the treat? Where's the treat, Broheem? Live up to your end of the bargain. And she just had a nice breakfast. So Lucy's doing well, is my point. Lucy's doing damn good. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving and holiday weekend. I did. And it was, we're 7 minutes early. I just noticed that. We're a little early. So we'll wait for everybody to roll in here and then we'll get started. And we'll do a nice show. You know the drill. We're almost at 30. We will start once we get to 30. I feel like cats always just tolerate us for the grub. You know me, man. I disagree. I think that I think the cats are actually very loving creatures. Similar to dogs, they're just a little different. They have more, not more, but they have like different personalities. They're a little more. They're independent. They kind of do their own thing. They don't value obedience, and I kind of respect that. I love dogs too. Don't get me wrong. I'm very much I'm a big animal guy. One of the kind of bad moments of my holiday weekend was my cousin had to put down his Boston Terrier of 12 years. And that hurt. I love that dog. My cousin lives in Columbia, South Carolina. When I was touring full time as a comedian, I would go and spend a lot of time with my cousin in Columbia whenever I'd be in the Southeast, and I would spend a lot of time with that dog, like a lot of time with that dog, and so it's pretty hard on me. I felt really, really bad. And I was texting with my cousin, and my cousin was like, dude, you were seriously one of his favorite people. So anyway, yeah, that sucks. So I love dogs too, I guess is my point. My girlfriend's old cat would run to his food bowl when he was hungry. Well, they do that. And meow. He even did it right after he ate. They try to trick you. You can't let them do that. Lucy will try to pull that off, too. Like, my fiance will feed her, and then she'll, like, whine to me, like, oh, where's my food? And it's like, no, she ate. Don't let her trick you. And speaking of which, since we got on the topic, I released that video where we talked about, like, vets and the type of litter that I use. We had a little bit of a cat talk moment. And other people had horror stories from Banfield. If you don't know, if you weren't there when we were talking about that, Banfield is basically the Walmart of veterinarians. They're like this chain veterinarian. And I know that some people that live in rural areas, it's their only option. So I'm certainly not trying to shame anybody if they have to go there. But if you have a choice, please don't go there. What's up, Rex the Younger? Howdy, howdy from the UK. But anyway, people were leaving other horror stories about that organization. So in the future, I might do a little bit of legwork to kind of uncover more about that organization. Karen echoes, Banfield sucks. I agree. They're terrible. I never used them as a vet. I just had a bad experience when I needed to get my food from them, because I would just get my food from PetSmart, because that was where I got my litter. So I had to deal with Banfield to get my food because my cat uses a prescription food. And they were just insane in dealing with me. They wanted to, like, not give me my food because they claimed that my prescription was expired, and I think I just grabbed the wrong one. And I explained to them I've been getting the same litter for 7 years, and they were just being absolutely ridiculous. And all you guys are echoing that. Yeah, the Banfield's terrible, and yeah. We'll have to do an expose sometime. Guys, we are a few minutes early, but we are over 30, so we are officially beginning. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. Happy Monday. Happy Music Monday. Good to be back. I miss y'all. Hope you missed this stream too. Feels good to be back. I missed this. Good morning. Good afternoon. Maybe it's afternoon where you're at. I have no idea. But whatever's going on where you're at, good time. It might be evening where you are. Some of you guys said you're in the UK. It's evening there. Good evening. Hope it's well. Hope you're crushing it. I'm feeling good. All right. Anyway, let's talk about music to start off, because it's Music Monday. Good morning, Ron. Hope you had a great weekend. I did. Oh, and by a quick shout out before we move forward, I'm wearing the t-shirt from Ham Bones, the venue I played in Pittsburgh. It's a venue I've been going to for years. And man, thank you to everyone that came out in Pittsburgh. We were sold out. We were packed to the brim. We ran out of seating. But you guys were good sports with each other, and you made it happen. People were sharing their tables. People were sharing seats. And some people were willing to sit on stage. There's a big stage at Ham Bones. It's big enough for a band. So I was like, look, do you guys want to sit on stage? You can kind of sit around. Like, all I need is space to hold my microphone and talk. So we had people sitting on stage with me, which was kind of cool, and they were good sports about it. And of course I played with them a little bit, and they were good sports about that too. So if anyone that was on the stage is in the stream this morning, shout out and thank you again, and thank you so much to everybody that came out and sold out the Pittsburgh show. It was a really cool welcome back to my hometown, and made me feel very, very good. And next time I play Pittsburgh, we're going to have to play a little bigger venue. We're probably going to go to Mr. Smalls. I love Ham Bones. Jeff, the owner, is a dear friend. We actually traded T-shirts. He traded me this T-shirt for one of mine, because I've always wanted one of these. It's a play on the Ramones, getting it to Music Monday, and I always thought it was just such a cool shirt, and I always forgot to pick one up. Or when I'd remember, he wouldn't have one. I mean, keep in mind, I'm only in the venue like once a year. But we saw each other. I was like, dude, do you have some Ham Bone shirts? Would you trade me? And he did. So anyway, shout out to Pittsburgh. Thank you so much for a sold out show. It warmed my heart, and it was such a cool way to end my my holiday week, because I flew out back to Los Angeles the next morning. So thank you so much for that. The topic I wanted to bring up today for Music Monday, I read Laura Jane Grace's book. Now, who is Laura Jane Grace? She is the front woman for the band Against Me. She is a transgender punk rock singer. And I've been listening to Against Me for a long time. I liked Against Me back when she was Tom Gable. That was who she was before she transitioned. And I've been listening to that band for a pretty long time. I'm not very fluent in all their catalog. In fact, my fiance is a bigger Against Me fan than I am. But I've seen them like 4 or 5 times over the years. And, you know, a lot of times it was like at a Warped Tour or something like that. Or I remember I saw them open for Alkaline Trio back in 2006. And I read the book and I learned that they actually had some conflicts with Alkaline Trio, which made me kind of sad. You know, I'm a fan of both bands. You know, it kind of bumps you out when you hear bad things about a band you really like. But I guess they had a little bit of drama. I don't want to go into detail because I don't want to spoil anything in the book, because I highly recommend, if you are a fan of punk rock, if you are a fan of Against Me, you got to read this book. And the reason I bring this up was, you know, I always like to bridge the connections between music and other things. And one of the things this book helped me do, other than just give me a really cool story. You know, I enjoy the band. I love rock bios. I freaking love them, especially if they're written by the person. I'm a sucker for those things. I have read almost every book about Nirvana, I feel like. And I've read No One Here Gets Out Alive is another fantastic one. If anyone here is a Doors fan, No One Here Gets Out Alive is such a cool freaking book about the Doors. What other rock? I mean, there's so many good ones. Johnny Cash's autobiography, such a cool read. Such a cool read. And, you know, I don't have any religious beliefs, so when he would get into that part, even though I didn't connect with it, I still enjoyed just reading it and hearing his perspective. But anyway, so Laura Jane Grace's book is really great, and it really tells Against Me's story. And not only am I a fan of Against Me, but I'm a fan of a lot of bands that they toured with. They talked about Alkaline Trio. They talked about Anti-Flag. So I really appreciated that. But something else that I really appreciated about that book was it helped me learn a little more about what it's like, or what the person goes through when they are transgender. And, you know, that's one of those things we talk about. You know, we've talked about that, you know, issues on the show. We talk about being transgendered, and it's one of those things where I've said I can only imagine what that feels like. Like, to me, that is just the idea of not feeling comfortable or at home in your own body. I can't even begin to wrap my head around what that feels like. To just wake up in your own body and think, this isn't right. This is wrong. This isn't who I am. I have no idea what that feels like. Like I can't even imagine. I just imagine it's like having a bad home life times a million. You know, and I know that's not a great analogy, but that's just me as someone who can only imagine what that feels like, trying to even attempt to have a point of reference. You know what I mean? Like, if you have a bad living situation or something like that, well, then you're very uncomfortable all the time because you hate going home. You know, if you have a bad roommate, or maybe you're in a toxic relationship, or maybe you have a terrible landlord, whatever. So you hate going home, and it screws up the rest of your day-to-day. Like it screws up the rest of your life, because at every moment you're thinking, oh, eventually I got to go back home, and I got to deal with this toxic person or this terrible, you know, so you're never comfortable. You're just never comfortable. I've been in a situation like that before. We all have. I'd imagine being transgender is that times about 1,000,000, because it's not just a bad home, it's your body. You feel that way inside of your own body. Oh, this is a bad situation. I can't imagine how that feels. And, it's something that I think that everybody is still learning about and still trying to understand. Because I like to try to understand people. I like to understand, their situation. And Laura Jane Grace's book really goes into detail about how it felt for her and how she had moments of doubt, how painful her transition was, physically and emotionally. It really goes into a lot of detail by that, and it's an interesting peek under the hood. And I bring that up because I love when music, any cultural art, but in particular music, because I love music a lot, and you guys know that about me. That's why we do a Music Monday. But I really love it when music can help make another connection. Where, and in this case, the fact that I love Against Me's music, and have for a long time, that interest in their music led to me, learning a little bit more about what it means to be transgendered. And I think that's really cool because I never would have saw that coming 12 years ago. 12 years ago, I saw Against Me. Laura Jane Grace was Tom Gable. And I had no idea that Tom Gable was going through gender dysphoria. I didn't know about that. How could I have known? He kept it a secret. And then in 2012, she came out and became Laura Jane Grace. And I just really appreciate when something like that happens. And I highly recommend reading that book. It's a really cool book. So, yeah, I thought that I'd bring that up. And let's see what you guys are saying. Dark Star Flashes, I just finished Pete Townsend's autobiography, and I'm 1/3 of the way through Neil Young's autobiography. Pete Townsend's I'd be really interested in reading. That guy is an interesting dude. Neil Young, I'd be interested too, but I like Neil Young. I'm a bigger Who fan, so I think I would read Pete Townsend's first. Jordan says, I felt the same way when I read Tranny, Ron. Tranny is the name of Laura Jane Grace's book. Well, it's interesting because, and I'm not going to say like I've never had, I've had transgendered friends for years. It's something that I've been learning about for years. But I feel like you always, I feel like you're always still learning and evolving on things when it's something you don't have a direct experience with yourself, meaning something that you can relate to firsthand. I'll give a for instance. I have two transgender. Here's an instance that involves two transgender friends of mine, my friend Barb and my friend Andy. One day I was talking to Barb, and Barb is originally from, I believe, Germany, and Barb was going to see her father. And the way she put it was, she said, my father's going to meet me for the first time. I met him many times. He's meeting me for the first time. I don't know what he's going to think. And that was Barb's way of saying that the last time she saw her father was before she transitioned. So I saw my friend Andy recently. And the last time I saw Andy, Andy had not transitioned. So when I saw her, and I've known Andy for a lot of years, so I felt comfortable asking Andy questions that I just didn't know the answer to. I knew she wouldn't, get offended or feel, I knew that she knew me long enough that she would know I'm just asking questions I don't know the answers to, and felt comfortable asking her. And I know she'd feel comfortable answering them. So I asked her, based on that conversation I had with Barb, I asked her, so am I meeting you for the first time? I didn't know if that was an offensive question or not. I honestly did not know. But I knew that Andy wouldn't be offended because she would know, that I just didn't know the answer to that. And I wanted to know, And she laughed. Andy laughed. And she said, no, you're not, you know me. And the joke that Andy made, and it's a very funny joke, and Andy is a very funny comedian. You all should check out Andy Awancio. The joke that she made, which is her joke, and I think it's a damn funny one, she said, look, I still love dick jokes, just don't got the dick. And we both laughed. And then I told Andy, I was like, well, the reason I asked that question, and I told her the thing about Barb, and she said, look, I don't feel that way, but people are different. So I guess what I'm getting at is I'm sure there are some transgendered people that feel the way Barb does and some that feel the way Andy does. I don't think either one is right or wrong. I think it's just people are different, and it's just a curious thing to me. It's interesting, and Laura Jane Grace's book gave me another perspective, and I appreciated it for many, many reasons, and that was one of them. Oh, and real quick, I'll say this too, and I'm curious what you guys have to say about this, if anything. I had a few really cool finds in my parents' basement. I left behind a Stooges LP, a Smithereens LP, and a Holy Rollers LP, which was an original Discord printing, and I was freaking stoked. Man, was that a cool find. I left a lot of vinyl at my parents' house when I was living in my car, and I was able to bring some of it back to Los Angeles with me. Not all of it. So, to tap off, which Stooges LP, Mike asked, it was a live one. It was released recently, even though it was recorded in 1970. So anyway, my point is, I recommend Laura Jane Grace's book. If you love rock bios, and if you like Against Me, and if you don't like Against Me, check them out. They're a great band. And it's a really, really cool book on so many levels. It tells a lot of stories about bands that I care about and that I like a lot. And it tells more of Against Me's story, which I really appreciated. And it talks a lot about her transition and being transgender. And, it's always a very cool perspective and an opportunity to expand one's horizons. Balthazar says, my favorite book by a musician is How I Didn't Check Out Streamlabs for Weeks on End and Refuse Free Money, a memoir with music by Ron Placone. Nice. I will check out that book, Balthazar. Much appreciated. Rex the Younger, Pete Townsend has a bit of a sketchy skeleton in his closet these days. Pam Ryan says, do you mean the alleged porn on his computer? So the last time I heard about that was years ago. And my understanding of the story, and this is going back years, the last time I heard about this, he apparently wanted to do research, and I don't know why that involved him looking up some pretty messed up porn. But apparently he said he was doing research, and he called Scotland Yard ahead of time to tell them that he was going to do this. He's like, look, I'm going to look up some pretty messed up stuff. I'm doing research. So it's like he gave them a heads up, said he was going to do it, and said what it was for, but they busted him anyway. And, I mean, I guess maybe they didn't investigate it ahead of time. I don't know. But that's his side of it, that he was doing research on abuse. So, I don't know. And that was the last thing I heard about that. So I'd still be curious to read the guy's book. Rex the Younger gives a shout out to Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull as being an enigma of a man. I interviewed Ian Anderson before. If you've never checked out my interview with Ian Anderson, please do. It was a short interview, but exciting nonetheless. And I think I told my story about that. But if I never did, I really need to, because it was pretty cool when I got to interview Ian Anderson. So, did anyone else get some? Did anyone else have any fun finds at their family's house this Thanksgiving by chance? I know that's a really kind of obscure question that might not apply to everybody, but man, was I stoked when I found those EPs in my parents' basement, and I got more. I got a lot of vinyl that I eventually need to get back to Los Angeles. And I just thought there's a chance. Also, I burned my lip. I don't know if you can see it. I burned my lip on soup. But I did burn my lip. I'm looking into the thing, and I'm noticing that it's kind of noticed. Tums Lover, thank you for the Super Chat contribution. Balthazar, thank you as well. You're getting married, ? Yes, I am. Congratulations, Ron. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that kindly. Oh, Sid Barrett was the person you were referencing. Yeah, Sid Barrett was an interesting guy. Yeah, he was an interesting. I mean, he lived with his parents, I'm pretty sure. Sid Barrett from Pink Floyd. So Sid Barrett was the main songwriter in Pink Floyd. Eventually, kind of went nuts, and they would try to keep him around and have him write songs, but he didn't tour with them for a while. This is Pink Floyd, and then yeah, he died. When was it he died? I think it was early 2000s. Sid Barrett died, but it was a while ago that Sid Barrett passed away. Sid Barrett I never got to interview. Ian Anderson I did, but yeah. And I guess Irregular Head must be his book. 2004, Rex the Younger. So Sid died in 2004. Not Sid Vicious. He died a while before that. All right. Let's move on to some other things. We got some Music Monday stories. We'll be getting to those. Here is not a music-related story, though. GM to lay off 15% of salaried workers. Halt production at 5 plants in the U.S. and Canada. Remember when we bailed them out? Remember when we bailed them out so they wouldn't do stuff like that? I do. Amid global restructuring, General Motors announced Monday it would reduce its North American production and salaried and executive workforce. The Detroit-based automaker said it would not be allocating any production to Oshawa Assembly in Ontario, Lordstown Assembly in Ohio and Detroit, Hamtramck Assembly in Michigan after December 2019. It will also stop allocating production at propulsion plants in White Marsh, Maryland and Warren, Michigan after December 2019. These changes are part of GM's efforts to focus its resources on self-driving and electric vehicles, as well as more efficient trucks, crossovers, and SUVs. The actions we are taking today continue our transformation to be heavily agile, resilient, and profitable while giving us flexibility to invest in the future. Why can't you invest in your current plants and do that type of innovation there? Why can't you do that? Wall Street applauded the news. Well, if Wall Street loves it, I guess we're good. Wall Street applauded the news, with GM stock climbing more than 7% following the announcement. GM is making a big bet on the future that is autonomous, connected, and electric. Why can't they do that in their existing plants? Why not? Why can't they use their existing plants? Why is it all these stateside plants? We bailed them out so they wouldn't do stuff like this, and here they are doing it anyway. And who's clapping their hands while this is going on? Wall Street, who is losing? The workers. Once again, the workers. I'm all about getting off of fossil fuels. I'm all about it. But we still need people to make those cars. And here's another situation of the workers getting screwed over. I don't think there's any good reason why they can't just use those existing plants, but they're not going to. Why? Because it saves. I'm sure those salaried workers that were cut, I'm sure none of them were higher ups or CEOs. And this is another, for instance, of when they hide under the guise of innovation. And it's a lie. It's a misdirection. They hide, oh, it's for innovation's sake. No, it's for you to cut corners, to reduce costs, and to pad your own pockets. Whether we have a car that runs on air or gasoline or a hybrid or solar, whatever else, you still need somebody to make the vehicle. You still need a physical vehicle that someone's sitting in, getting from point A to point B. So how does closing all these plants help you with that R&D? It doesn't. And we bailed GM out so they wouldn't do stuff like this, and they're doing it anyway, and they will face zero consequences. Rep-elect Ben Adams says he wants to get to work on DACA, could vote for a Republican speaker over Nancy Pelosi. Natural Progressive shares this, and she talks about what's going on with Nancy Pelosi, where basically, if you don't support Nancy Pelosi for speaker, well, the only people they're having also up for the gig are to the right of Nancy Pelosi, which is quite a feat. You know, I said, if you're in a situation where you're holding some type of election within your party and the most progressive, quote-unquote, option is Nancy Pelosi, you have a right-wing party. I mean, you have a right-wing party. I mean, how can anyone dispute that? Having Nancy Pelosi as your most progressive option in a race is like being at a restaurant and your healthiest food option is a deep-fried Twinkie. She's not progressive at all. Not even a little bit. So this Ben McAdams guy, he's pledged to oppose Nancy Pelosi's bid for another term as Speaker of the House, but with no alternative Democrat running yet to challenge Pelosi, does that mean he would cross the aisle and support a Republican Speaker? I guess we'll have to see who is running. McAdams says he intends to vote for someone as Speaker rather than just vote present or abstaining, as some Pelosi critics are expected to do. But McAdams declined, or was unable, to specify who would carry his support during the upcoming leadership votes. It's important to take a stand. And they couldn't get anyone to her left. McAdams, Salt Lake County's mayor, told Trip Talk he's eager to get to work, particularly on the subject of immigration. He spoke about a volunteer for his campaign who is one of the so-called dreamers, or individuals brought into the country illegally as children. The volunteer, along with thousands of others, has undergone stress and uncertainty caused by Donald Trump's revocation of DACA. I agree with that part. There's a lot of pressure on those dreamers. We failed them as a country. That's very true. I'd love to see us move forward as quickly as possible. A DACA fix. Now, here's where I strongly disagree with this guy. He said he'd also like to see consideration of a No Budget, No Pay Act, that's PAYGO, a proposal that would halt compensation of federal legislators if they are unable to enact a national budget. So this guy's for PAYGO. I don't know why he's not for Pelosi in that case, because she supports PAYGO too. But, this is just another, for instance, of they're holding progressives hostage. Your most progressive option is going to be Nancy Pelosi, because otherwise you got to cross the aisle for a Republican. And if they wanted to find Democrats to the right of Pelosi, they could. Why? Because they're a center-right party. And that's just amazing. In any type of race where it's the majority speaker and the most progressive option you put on that table is Nancy Pelosi. What's your most nutritious option? We got this deep-fried Twinkie. That's it. And if you don't want that, something even worse is waiting. How is that representative of the United States? It's not. It's not. Having Nancy Pelosi as the most progressive option in any situation is not at all reflexive of the people that live in this country. It just isn't. Thanks for sharing, Natural Progressive. And we got a little more Trump administration news here. Trump administration tries to bury a 1,656-page climate report warning of devastating health impacts of warming. So this happened on Black Friday, basically. The White House released an alarming, this is from Democracy Now!, by the way, the White House released an alarming climate change report on Black Friday, attempting to bury a 1,656-page government assessment that directly contradicts President Trump's history of climate change denial. So they're saying climate change is real. We're evolving. The damning report, known as the National Climate Assessment, says that the consequences of climate change will leave no part of the U.S. untouched, and the warming climate will increase wildfires, crumble infrastructure, worsen air quality, destroy crops, and lead to more frequent disease outbreaks. It also finds that global warming could shrink the U.S. economy by as much as 10% by the end of the century. The findings are a sharp rebuke to the Trump administration's insistence that environmental regulations hurt jobs. That's bullshit, by the way, and hinder economic growth. Once again, bullshit. We speak with, all right, so that's going on to the interview they have that we're not going to get into. So there you go. That's from Democracy Now! And they talked about this on CNN, where they had Rick Santorum as one of the speakers. They had Rick Santorum talk about climate change. Because I guess that Pat Robertson was busy, so they had to call Rick Santorum, and Rick Santorum applauded this effort. He said it was great that they buried this and tried to just rush it through on Black Friday and ignore it. And then he did the typical right-wing talking point of, look, I know the climate is changing. The climate's changing, said Rick Santorum. But, the question is, how much of a role is made, which that is such a lazy, just verbal diarrhea. That means nothing. Of course, we can discuss about how much man is playing a role. That doesn't mean anything. That's a meaningless jargon. The point is, man is playing a role, and if we don't stop, there's going to be consequences. The science community is pretty much unanimous in that. About 97% agree this is happening, it's real, we're playing a role, we need to do better, or we're going to be in some trouble. And it's like, oh, but how much trouble? How much trouble? We need to know. All right, let's see what's going on here. We're going to switch gears. Charvel Guitar Workshop destroyed in California fire. This is from David. And this brings us over to some Music Monday stuff. The home and workshop of iconic guitar maker Wayne Charvel was destroyed in the California forest fires, his son Michael reported. In all, 6 members of the Charvel family lost their homes, but Michael vowed to get back in business as soon as possible. Wayne Charvel began making custom guitars in the 50s and established a connection with rock music in the 80s when his instruments were adopted by artists including Eddie Van Halen, Richie Sambora, Vinnie Vincent, Jakey Lee, and others. He sold the brand but continued to work with Michael under the title Wayne Guitars in Paradise, California. That's really sad. But I hope he gets back to it. So Michael told Popular Mechanics that he feared for his life when he woke one morning to discover his house was on fire. On my street alone, 5 people died in their cars trying to escape. There were only 3 ways out of paradise, and 2 of them were on fire, so everyone was trying to get out. Wow. That is, wow. My brother-in-law is the fire chief and is friends with the sheriff, and it turns out the sheriff likes Van Halen, so he's like, oh yeah, Wayne Sherfield, no problem, I'll put you guys up. That's funny. He's like, oh, you make guitars. That's pretty badass. That's cool. Well, this is really bummer news, but, you know, I'm glad that the guy made it out, and certainly things you can replace, people you can't. Sadly, not everyone in his community made it out. As he reported, 5 people died, so that's very sad. And I'm sure he'll get back to making guitars as soon as possible. I don't know if you guys saw that, but there was a Freddie Mercury thing in that article as well. I'll bring this up from Music Monday as well. If you haven't seen Bohemian Rhapsody yet, I highly recommend it. It's a really fun movie. It's a good rock pick. Or what do you call it? I guess biopic you call it. It's not a documentary. So I'm sure they took some liberties for dramatic effect. But it's based on the story of Queen. I feel like it does a pretty good job telling their story. I enjoyed it very much. And you know, another topic we need to do some of these days for Music Monday is who was the best rock and roll front person if you had to just pick one. And, you know, my gold star has got to go to Freddie Mercury. We'll talk about that on a different day. But, Freddie Mercury, I feel like he just set a bar that no one else has been able to reach as far as the dynamic of him as a musician, the dynamic of his songwriting, the way he ran the stage, his vocal talent. Man, he was something. And I feel like the movie really captures that. So best wishes to Wayne. I'm glad he's okay. And I'm sure he'll be back to playing guitar or building guitars again soon. Those are some heavy hitters that used his guitars. All right, and we got some more stuff here. I'm scrolling the timeline now to get back to it. And I just closed out of the chat on accident. Sorry about that. All right, and I'm back. Sorry about that, y'all. All right. Sorry about that. I got a little discombobulated there, and I apologize. All right, this is from Art, and this takes us to Detroit. Back to Detroit. We were just in Detroit, but we're going back to Detroit, which I'm excited to see in Detroit this year. We'll definitely be going to Detroit. Graham Elwood and myself will be going to Detroit at some point in 2019. I'm not exactly sure when. We're figuring out our Midwest dates, but yeah. Detroit police officers fight each other. An undercover op gone wrong. All right, this is my first time hearing about this, so let's see what happened. An internal investigation has been launched at the Detroit Police Department after 2 different precincts got into a turf war as they converged on an East Side neighborhood. Neighbors who live on Andover on Detroit's East Side will be the first to tell you this area is known for drug activity. All right, so there's a drug problem. On Thursday, Detroit police certainly tried, but maybe too hard. Okay? Sources say it started when 2 special ops officers from the 12th precinct were operating a push-off. I don't know what that means. On Andover near 7 Mile. This is when, oh, they tell you. Okay. That is when 2 undercover officers pretend to be dope dealers waiting for eager customers to approach and then arrest potential buyers and seize their vehicles. But this time, instead of customers, special ops officers from the 11th precinct showed up. Not realizing they are fellow officers, they ordered the undercover officers to the ground. So, in a city that is as under-resourced as Detroit, where there are situations where sometimes people don't show up to fires on time, even though they're called, and buildings burn down, where they're not able to take care of their parks because of the city being under-resourced, and sometimes there's a volunteer group that goes around and cuts the grass of the local city parks. And I'm not bashing Detroit when I'm saying this. I love Detroit. It's one of my favorite cities. And it's actually very admirable the way the community has risen to the occasion and has taken care of each other. What I'm saying is, it is such an under-resourced place. There's so much corruption in their city government over the years, and this is what their cops spend time doing. They spend time busting each other on fake drug setups. That's good job, Detroit. Good job. Way to go. Every officer involved should be fired, and they shouldn't spend their time doing stuff like that. So, shame on you, Detroit police. We got another Music Monday thing here. So let's go to it. Alt-rock icon Dan Ween pitches marijuana. Wow, why am I'm trying to say marijuana friendly, and I, stumbled over myself and said marijuana. Marijuana is going to be the name of my Fish tribute band. Look out for it. I'm actually not a big Fish guy, but that'd be a funny... Anyway. All right. Alt-rock icon Dan Ween pitches marijuana-friendly concert venue in downtown Denver. Dan Ween has big plans for Denver. The guitarist, best known for his work in the iconic alt-rock band Ween, hopes to open a Denver concert venue, whereas the audience will be allowed to use pot without hiding from security. The venue would be named Dan Ween's Honey Pot Lounge and would be located near Coors Field, according to its chief operating officer, Michael Polanski, who announced the plan at a city meeting on Monday. Now, so pot's legal in Colorado, so I guess they're weird about... in Los Angeles, I can tell you this, you're basically allowed, if you're in a smoking area... You're allowed to just smoke pot. No one cares. No one cares. One time I smoked it in my seat at the Hollywood Bowl, and someone working there just told me to go to a smoking area. They were just like, hey, that's fine, but just go to a smoking area. And I said, sure. I think cannabis and music make total sense together, Polanski told. He's saying this like... They're saying this like they're the first person to think of this. Man, I never thought about this, but it turns out pot might make live entertainment even more fun. Who would have thought? I wonder if anyone's tried this before. Man, I was listening to some rock and roll and I smoked a joint and I thought, man, this is like peanut butter and jelly. Has anyone ever done this? Holy shit. The venue would host music, comedy, and film-related events. Well, I wonder what their capacity is. Maybe, just maybe, when the Progressive Comedy Tour comes, we'll come to that venue if they get it open. I'm surprised. I'm sure people... I don't know. Maybe they're a little more strict in Denver. I can't imagine they would be, but... I'd imagine people just go to a smoking area, they smoke pot, and then they walk back into the venue. But I guess maybe he's calling for something more extensive where you just, can really just smoke right there. which once again is something people do all the freaking time, especially if they got lawn seats at a bigger show. So cool. I wish Dean Ween luck. I hope he gets it open. But I guess I'm not really... I mean, it'd be more interesting if they tried to pull something like that off in a place where pot wasn't legal. I'm sure you couldn't. But that'd be more of like, it's like Colorado. It's already legal. So I guess you don't have to go outside to the smoking area. I guess that's what they're going for. Which, cool. I wish them all the luck. But, yeah, I feel like if something like that opened where I live in Los Angeles, I'd just be like, okay, cool. But, yeah, we kind of already got that. It's already a thing we have. All right. Thank you for sharing. You know I always love the Music Monday-centric news. And this is from Jordan. And we'll give this a Get Your News On With Ron retweet. And this may be... I may go to the chat in a bit to cap off the show, because I do have something I wanted to share with you guys. And I wanted to end the chat kind of catching up a little bit. We've had a little bit of a hiatus, so I want to know how your holiday was. So this will probably be, let me see. Yeah, this will be our last one for today, our last story. And then I want to hear from you guys. And man, we're staying in Michigan, you guys. This was a Michigan-centric show today, which is okay with me. And I will be seeing you guys in Michigan at some point next year. I'm not exactly sure when we're going to do our Midwest time, but we're going to do the Midwest either in the summer or the fall. But anyway, let's go to the article. This is from the Detroit Free Press. I am stumbling on my words today, guys. I'll tell you. My first stream back in a week, and I'm a little rusty. But this is from the Detroit Free Press. More radioactive fracking waste could be coming to Michigan. Some Michigan landfills could take in low-level radioactive waste from oil and gas fracking at up to 10 times the radioactivity currently allowed at landfills statewide under bills proposed in the Michigan Senate. Critics contend the proposed bills further open Michigan up to becoming the dumping ground for fracking waste from all over the United States. At issue is waste called technologically enhanced naturally occurring radioactive material. It includes materials whose low naturally occurring radiation levels are increased through human activities that concentrate them. The controversial oil and gas drilling practice known as hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, is a major generator of it. So here's the bill. Senate Bill 1196, sponsored by Tom Casperson, would enshrine new law, the 50 limit, I don't know, I'm not going to try, for 10 norm going to state landfills, and add a limit for another radioactive element, lead-210, of up to 260 per gram. Casperson bill would also allow landfills to seek state approval to take in the waste at higher radioactivity concentrations. So they're basically going to be dumping waste. They're going to be allowed to dump more waste. And how do they defend this? Like, how do they in any way defend this? That's absolutely remarkable. In a place where areas don't even have access to clean water. Flint doesn't have clean water. They're going to allow something like this to happen. And you guys know where I'm at on fracking. The proper homework was not done. It's not going to be done. Fracking is not safe. It is not safe. Fracking is not safe. At all. At all. I know right now I'm preaching to the choir, but there's going to be people that watch this clip later that are going to somehow, oh, it's safe. No, it's not safe. All right? I'm from Western Pennsylvania. I was just there. I was just there in Pittsburgh. And I've driven all over that state. I've seen fracking wells. I've done media ecology reports based on what little environmental protections we have. The EPA is essentially just a slap on the wrist at best of the oil and gas companies. They commit thousands of violations per year that go unreported. Thousands. When I did my ecology report in 2011, there were 2,800 unreported violations. There are spills. The drilling process is not safe. It contaminates water wells constantly. They pass the buck to third-party companies, so you don't know where to look when you have an issue. There's fracking going on near some of my family. There's fracking going on near their property. Because what they do is they hold you hostage on your own property because you either sign away your mineral rights, and at least get some money for it, or they're going to drill there anyway. Because all it takes is one person to sign over those mineral rights. They have damn good PR people. Someone's going to. And once someone does, it affects everybody no matter what. So you either sign on the dotted line and at least get some compensation, or they're going to fuck your property anyway and you ain't getting nothing. They twist your arm big time. And that happened to family of mine. And they have dealt with, they drill at times where they say they're not going to. There's been constant, and then when people need to complain, you don't know where to complain because they keep passing the buck to other companies. It is a shady, beyond shady organization. And now in Michigan, they want to lax what little protections exist even further, where you can just dump essentially whatever you want. So if you live in Michigan, please do what you can. Let me get the name of that bill again. Senate Bill 1196. Please call your representatives. Tell them to oppose this. Because, yeah, the homework was not done. And it was on purpose. It's not like, oh, we want to do this in a safe environment. No, they don't care. And by the way, the argument that, well, fracking, it's necessary for it. No, it's... Fracking, we do not benefit locally or even domestically from any of that energy. That energy is then shipped around the world. So all fracking does, it pads the pockets of CEOs while wrecking the environment, and it gives some temporary jobs that aren't permanent jobs, that are dangerous, and most communities don't benefit from it. And by most, I mean all. No community benefits from it. Because guess what? You can't mess with this. You can't mess with this. And they want to relax it even further in Michigan, a place where residents don't have access to clean water. Oh, and no, by the way, the water in Flint is not safe. They cooked the books to try to make it out like it was safe. It's not. They corrupted their own tests to try to make it out like the lead levels were okay. They're not. So let's end on a brighter note. I want to hear from you guys. I want to know how everybody's holiday was. And there's something else I wanted to share before we sign out. So I'm going to go to the chat and see what y'all are saying. Balthazar, thank you for the Super Chat contribution. A deep-fried Twinkie is better than Nancy Pelosi. It doesn't disguise identity and delivers what it claims. Pelosi is the sweetbreads of politics. Okay. Balthazar, tired of missing donations, angry how YouTube takes 2 weeks to pay out instead of 2 days. Ask your grandma how Streamlabs might be right for you. I know, I need to look into Streamlabs. Thank you very much, Balthazar. I appreciate it very much. And thank you for your contribution. Let's see. Brent McKinney reminds us that because of Tom Perez, the Democrats now accept fossil fuel money again. That is true. Natural Progressive agrees. No benefits. No community benefits from it. Garden Gnome points out that Southern Michigan is going through a lot. Jenna points out Flint, Michigan still does not have clean water. Thanks for sending me that music, by the way, Jenna. I really enjoyed it. Let's see. Balthazar says, check donations before you go. Of course, just did. Let's see. There are dozens of cities in Michigan that have undrinkable water. That is true. And there's other cities throughout the country that don't have drinkable water. Ciro Divisor, I had pizza and video games with the wife. Best Thanksgiving ever. That sounds like an awesome Thanksgiving. I overate big time. I really did. I overate big time. What else did you guys do? Oh, Chris points out that Black Friday starts at 6 p.m. Thanksgiving evening now. You know, Black Friday is such a nonsense. I mean, it's not a holiday, first of all. Obviously, I know you guys know that, but it's so... You know what I think about Black Friday? It's not a coincidence that people have a holiday devoted to capitalism the same day most people have their roughest bowel movement of the year. Do you ever notice that? The day after Thanksgiving, a lot of people have their roughest bowel movement of the year, and that's the day where we really celebrate the capitalism, baby. Black Friday. Trample your neighbor to save $20 on a TV. Do it. Marcia, thank you very much for the super chat contribution. We were thankful to have avoided the Woolsey fire, although the smoke and ash has been a real problem. I'm glad you're staying safe in those fires, Marcia. It has been crazy out here in Southern California, and the air quality is still terrible. Balthazar, thank you again for the super chat contribution. Fahrenheit 11.9 has a great segment on Flint, from the switch point through the military training grounds done by the federal government through today. Thank you for that. I do need to see that movie. And Garden Gnome points out that on Black Friday, they buy nothing. I do that too. I try to make sure I never buy anything on Black Friday. And Statutory points out I stay away from Black Friday like I avoid the band Creed. Way to bring it back to Music Monday. You know, I love that. I buy nothing on Black Friday, although I appreciate you guys that came out to the show that broke that rule on my behalf, because some of you guys bought my album and you bought my t-shirts, and I do appreciate that very much. So thank you for not inflicting that rule on me, for everybody that came out to the show in Pittsburgh, and for, you know, coming out to the show. I guess buying a ticket is technically buying something, so I appreciate you. If you follow that rule, I appreciate you bending it on my behalf and coming out to the show, because, yeah, I did a show. This is actually the second year in a row that I did a show in Pittsburgh on Black Friday. So it's becoming a bit of a tradition. I typically go home to see my family who's in Pittsburgh. I typically go there on Thanksgiving. And this is the second year in a row I did a show on Black Friday. This is the first year in a row that show was completely sold out. So thank you again, everybody that came out. And I'm going to shout out some dates here. But before I do, I wanted to share something with you. So this is something I posted on my Patreon, and it was just sort of my thank you to everybody, you know, on Thanksgiving, because I do think that's, you know, even the holiday has a rocky history, as every holiday does. You know, there are some positive things you can kind of take out of it and kind of make your own, and I think, you know, reflecting and giving thanks is, you know, a positive we can take from it. And so I did that. And here's the letter I wrote. This was something I posted on Patreon, but I wanted to share it with everybody because I really feel like it sums up what I'm trying to do with Get Your News On with Ron. And I feel like it's happening. And that means more to me than I can even put into words. And I'm being very sincere when I say that. So here's what I wrote, and I wanted to share it with everybody. I feel like it's appropriate to share with Get Your News On with Ron. Hello all. I know I'm a day late, but things are a little out of whack with the holiday week and whatnot. I say that because I posted this on Thanksgiving Day. So I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so very much for allowing me to do what I do. Which is, you know, without you guys being here and without the support from patrons and without, this show wouldn't exist. It just couldn't. So I do sincerely mean that. This show wouldn't be happening. For the past 7-ish months, we're still a very new show. We're still a baby. We're still a baby. We're still in diapers, you guys. Remember that every time I'm clumsily scrolling through a timeline or stumbling over my words because I'm reading everything for the first time. For the past 7-ish months, I've gotten to spend the beginning of my Mondays through Thursdays with a friendly reminder that I'm not alone in the world. That there are other people in the world who are like-minded. Now, when I say this, I'm not implying that everyone who tunes in to Get Your News On with Ron agrees 100% of the time on every single issue and every single topic we talk about. We don't. And it'd be a really boring world if we did. Plus, I run a show, not a cult. What I mean is that we're trying to make sense of this crazy planet we inhabit. And we see the benefit at trying to inform ourselves in a group. And agree that humor, culture, and music can help us piece together this puzzle of what it means to let the world in and participate in it. Years ago, I went to the rally for sanity that Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert had. Regardless how anyone may feel about either of them as of recent, I admittedly haven't been paying attention in either case. At the end of that rally, Stewart had a pretty cool send-off. He said, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember verbatim, "I don't know if this will bring sanity to the world, but I hope it has done as much for yours as it has for mine." That's the way I feel every single morning after our stream ends. Thank you for that. And I hope it does the same for you. Doing this every morning does make me feel better about the world. It does make me feel like I'm less alone. And it does, just kind of gives me a little bit of a healthier perspective on things. And I hope it does the same for you. I really do. So, guys, we're out of time. Couple tour dates before we sign off here. Tickets are available now for Gainesville, Florida, Coral Gables, Florida, Orlando, Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. We're going to be there in January. Grandma Wood and myself, we're going to be there in January. February, fingers crossed, we're going to be at Hawaii. Still waiting to confirm that. March, we're going to be in Pensacola, Florida, and New Orleans, Louisiana. Tickets for that available now, ronplacone.com. April, just confirmed Fort Worth, Texas. We're also going to be doing more dates in Texas. ronplacone.com for all those tickets. If you can support this show on the sustainability end, please consider becoming a patron. For a Give What You Can level, you can get all kinds of exclusive content, including my album. Boom, my album. Which, by the way, November 29th, Los Angeles friends, my album release show. We had to switch the time on it. The show is going to start at 9:30 instead of at 8. We got pushed to the later show that happens sometimes in Los Angeles. So we did get pushed to the later time. So that show is still on November 29th, but it will be starting at 9:30 p.m. There is still free parking. There is still free cake. Please come out to that show, Los Angeles friends. Tweet at me. I'll put you on the guest list. Free parking, free cake, free admission. Come on out. And we're celebrating my album release. And if you're a patron, you get that album available for download for a pay what you can level. Please do consider it. That's patreon.com/Ron Placone. And guys, more tour dates are coming. Do not worry. A lot of you guys are throwing in some cities. Northwest, we're coming. I promise you on that one. Colorado, we're coming. East Coast, we're coming. Midwest, we're coming. And of course, Detroit. We are coming, Detroit. A lot of Detroit news today. And of course, we are coming to Detroit. That's a promise. We might do the Midwest in the summer or in the fall. I'm not quite sure yet, but we will be doing it. Thank you guys so much for a wonderful stream. I am thrilled to frickin' be back. I hope you're thrilled to be back too. I will see you tomorrow at the same bat time, same bat channel, 1 p.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be back tomorrow. This has been Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. Peace.